Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. And if you're here and you're a parent of a teenager, you know how challenging these years can be. And maybe your teen used to talk to you about everything or most things, and now they're constantly in their rooms and they're barely saying a word. Or if they do, they're rolling their eyes. Or maybe it feels like all you do is argue. And if you're honest, you're not even liking them very much right now. Or maybe you're feeling really discouraged because you've tried everything to make things better, but nothing seems to be working. Well, if any of this sounds familiar, I'm so glad that you are listening today because we have Susan Caso with us. And she just came out with this fantastic book. And for those of you watching, you can see her book, but it is awesome. And it's called The Parent Teen Connection: How to Build Lifelong Family Relationships. And it's endorsed by Children's Hospital, Colorado, and the Crisis Text Line. And Susan is a therapist and a speaker. She has over 20 years in clinical practice, and she has been helping parents, teens, and families find the feeling of connectedness that creates heartfelt interactions. And today, Susan's going to share with us what you can do to build trust with your teens, overcome any obstacles, and strengthen your relationship and safeguard your kids in today's world. So, welcome, Susan, to the show. And I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about you. I know you have three kids. About how did you become a therapist? How did you come to write this book?
I live in Boulder, Colorado, and I've been a therapist for over 20 years. And yes, I have three kids, 26, 21, and 11.
Yay,
And
that baby. I have
so
the
it's
that's a
such
lot.
a fun household with them all there, because the two older kids are gone a lot. So I feel so full, just my heart's full when they're all there together because, um, we have so much fun.
Yeah,
Um,
over the holidays, having everybody sleep in the same house when they get older, you don't get that as much.
I don't.
Yeah.
And when the older ones leave, there's like this, I don't know, my heart sinks a little bit. And I get into a little funk for a couple of days, like, okay, it's over, they're gone.
I
But I have my little one and I'm so thankful for her.
Yes. So that's a what gap is that? So that's 11 and then the next one's how old?
So it's 14 years between the youngest and the oldest, and then a decade, 10 years.
Okay, and then 10 years. Okay, because I
Yeah.
have a 9-year gap and then a 6-year gap. But my kids are a little bit older now, but it was sweet when especially when the teen was going through the teen years and I still had the younger one that liked me. That was really the timing of that worked out well.
Oh, you're so funny. You go through a time where they may not like you as much, or they just want their own space, and all of that is normal. It's very normal.
Yeah, we need to hear that. It's normal. It's normal. Don't panic. So anyway, keep going. We digressed, but you have been in practice for over 20 years. You're in Boulder. And what led you to write the book?
Well, I see the same patterns, the same negative cycles of interaction between parent and teen, and I looked at what I was doing in session that worked to create stronger bonds, and I decided to put that in a book. To reach more people. There's so many barriers for parents, for people to access help, and whether that is a financial barrier, access to services, or just simply stigma prevents people from reaching out for help. And so this book eliminates barriers for people to get help.
Um, well, before, right when we first got on, I said, it seems to me that you wrote this out of your experience and knowing what parents really need. Because when I read it, I'm like, gosh, you hit all the points that like the moms that I work with and are in our membership group and our communities really struggle with. And it's a powerful book and it's so rich. And we were talking about, why is this so hard? And you said that there's a stigma. Like it sounds like it should be easy, like connecting. We want that more than anything. We just long to be close to our kids. Yet it's, especially when they're teens, so much is changing. Can you touch on why is it harder than we feel like it should be?
Well, I think that it's almost like we have to really look at them and look at the changes that they're going through, and then we have to do the adjusting a little bit. And I think it's hard. We think oh, we had our babies, right? And they're always our babies. And, that cuddly and that warmth and then through the years they're talking to us, they're engaged with us, they want to know us, and it's fun. And then the teenage years hit and it changes, and I see parents where it kind of hurts their feelings, right? That their
Oh,
kids don't want to hang out with them. And I keep saying, like, this is actually normal. And you actually want your kids to venture out, to find their people, to find their social circle. That's what they're supposed to be doing at this age. That still doesn't mean that they don't need you. You still need to connect with your kids every single day, checking in with them, um, having dinner with them. I think we're losing time at the dinner table. People are not having dinner anymore, and that is really a protective factor, is sitting down to dinner every night and connecting with your kids.
yeah. We're
Yeah.
so busy and our kids are in so many activities and there's so much pressure. And you touch on that in the book too, about the amount of pressure. And I see that um, myself. So, and it's changed. I was listening to you talk on another podcast, and you were even talking about how different it is between your 11-year-old and your older kids. And that resonated so much with me because just with social media, it's changed so much between my oldest and my youngest.
It's social media, obviously, and it's also the pressure and the expectations that we have on our teenagers. And I think that because I have this view of 2 decades, not only at home, but in my office, of seeing the changes that are happening and what we're expecting of teenagers. I think that, parents where their kids are entering middle school or high school, they think this is the way it's always been. It's not the way it's always been. It used to be a 4.0 is great, and now that will close doors for you. It used to be, oh, you're on the top level of the soccer, team, competitive team, and you're practicing 4 times a week for an hour and a half. Not the case. 2.5 hours plus conditioning, maybe 5 times a week or more. And so when we look at these demands and time commitment and pressure that we're putting on our kids, it's a lot. And it's taking away from the time that families can spend together because everyone is so scattered doing these other things in their room, studying because they have so much homework, or they're, at their sport, which I, but first of all, I love sports and I require that my kids play. I'm just saying, I think that it's just gotten to this point that the requirement is a lot, and
Yeah.
it takes away from family time.
Yeah, gone are the days when I was growing up. I'll age myself here, where like my husband played soccer and he played soccer in college. He didn't start playing until he was a freshman in high school. Now, I have a grandson that's 7, and I'm like, oh my goodness, he's already behind. Like he's got to be playing basketball. He's got to get his skills. Like I feel it. And
I know,
yeah,
isn't that sad?
it
And that's
is.
where and that's where it's like, even in sports, we're adding all this pressure to our kids. Like, kids just need to be kids. They just need to go have some fun, learn some skills, social emotional growth. You know, why are we pressuring them to achieve, set the bar high? Where's the bar? It's in the clouds, it's moving. You know what I mean? And at age 7, like you're explaining, like it's just too much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And feeling like they'll fall behind if we don't do this.
Right. Or we as parents are giving our kids like there's a disservice there. Like we are not like being a good parent because we're not having them practice this much or you know go to extra conditioning and skills training and all of this stuff. Now if the kid loves it, yeah, that's great, right? And we
Mm.
want our kids to do things that they love and be active every single day. Our kids need to be active, but we just need to really understand where the balance is.
Yes. And what really matters, which is what your book's about. It's like you're not poo-pooing any of that, but you're helping us know like how in the midst of all of this do we really connect with our kids and be that safe, trusted place for them. So talk about that, the connectedness, like how you chose to, um, well, let's back up. What are you hoping parents are going to take away from this book?
The intent of the book is to create stronger families where there's a deep sense of belonging, healthy communication, and an emotional closeness between parent and teen. That's what safeguards kids today is that connection, that closeness. And I use the word connectedness. And a lot of people haven't heard about that word or they think it's a fake word. I had one man like say, "Are you sure that's a word?" And I had to show him like it is, it's in the dictionary. But connectedness, connectedness is that feeling that of closeness with another who, we know values us, we feel like we matter. There's like an internal warmth and there's a safe responsiveness in the relationship and we know that somebody has our back, right? And it kind of anchors us. It feels good. And so that is the premise of the book is that connectedness and how do you build that with your kid? And, again, even studies show that connectedness with at least one parent reduces substance abuse, violence, higher self esteem, lowers depressive symptoms, um, a whole other, less emotional problems. So it's studied. I'm not just making this up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think there's a lot of comfort too that you said one parent.
at least one parent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at least one parent, because sometimes it's like, okay, well, my spouse or, or my ex, or they're not fill in the blank. But there's
yeah,
power in being one parent that can give
right,
that to them.
right. Yeah,
So connectedness, where do we start? And maybe even let's start with what does get in the way of connectedness? Like what are some of those
yeah,
common mistakes that we make as parents?
yeah. Um, I'm trying to think of where to begin with that question because it's a big question. There are lots of things that can get in the way of connection. And a lot of it, if we could just look at maybe communication, right? We
Mhm.
do lots of things when we communicate, and those are verbal, nonverbal, paraverbals. And those are messages that we're sending to our kids all the time. And so we actually do need to reflect on what are we sending to our kids? What messages are we sending? How do our kids feel when they're around us? Are we a source of comfort and reassurance to them? And so barriers could be judgment, criticalness, defensiveness, um, a lack of attention, right? A lack of interest in your child. I think all kids know that we love them, but our kids need to know that we like them too, and that we do want to spend time with them.
Yeah, yeah, that we like them. and that kind of makes me think about the hurt piece that you talked about. Um, that when teenagers are angry, a lot of times you can feel rejected by your kid
Mhm.
and and feel hurt. And then I think that causes this rift and this pulling away from them, which is not really what we want. But what do you do if you're feeling like your kid doesn't like you? How do you begin to bridge the gap? And you talk a lot about that in the book
Mhm.
and what we can do and all the different layers of it. But I was also struck by your chapter on creating a sense of belonging in your home.
Mhm.
And that was really powerful to me because my oldest is 34 now. And I remember being in a therapist's office when we were struggling with her when she was tween teen and them saying, where does she fit? Like they brought that up, like the sense of belonging.
Mhm.
And I remember at the time not having an answer, like really thinking about that and going, gosh, I don't know. Does she even feel like she belongs in the family? And so speak to that. Why does it matter? What does that look like?
Belonging is a basic human need. And, we thrive when we feel like we belong. And we talk a lot about belonging in school, belonging in the workplace, belonging in community, but we're not talking about belonging in home, which is the most important place, right? For kids to feel like they belong. And so we have to be conscious of cultivating belonging at home. And I talk a lot about that in the book of how to do that. Um, and, I think kids want to feel that they matter to their parent,
Mm-hmm.
that they belong at home, again, that they're liked. All of those things are important. And we have to look that, again, what are these messages that we're sending to our kids? Are we sending those messages that they do matter? Not that they matter, that we have to do all these things and, you know, s- work on their schedules and cook the meals but sometimes those are done with, we're exasperated and then they feel like, okay, gosh, whoa, hold on. I shouldn't ask, maybe this isn't, my place to do this or what have you. But um, yeah, that belonging, we just don't talk enough about it at home.
Yeah. And you say in the book about how being a part of a family doesn't automatically give a child the feeling of belonging. And as you're saying that, I'm like, well, they belong in the family. Like they're my kid. But obviously they're feeling when a teenager comes to and they don't feel like they belong, are there certain things that they're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I have had kids say, I don't feel welcomed at home. And that could be a sibling picking on them and then a parent chiming in and poking fun or, being sarcastic. Uh, it could be judgment, criticalness, not accepting your kid. And so if we can look at what we're doing at home around these types of things, right? Um, are the siblings bullying? Is the parent bullying? Is there yelling? Is there all of these kinds of criticalness, judgment, all of these things that send negative messages that, hey, you don't belong here? if if we can look at what's going on at home and say, if this were outside my home and somebody was doing this to my child, what would I say?
Wow. Yeah. Wow. You gave a statistic about asking kids if they felt like, was it that their home was a positive place? Was that the question? And tell the percentage of
Mm-hmm.
kids. And I think that's a powerful question if we can brace ourselves for the answer, ready to hear the truth of what they might say. What was it? How many positive interactions do you have?
Yeah, what I ask kids is what percent of interaction do you perceive as positive with your parents? And I'll ask them with mom, with dad, or anyone else that's in the home. And I do that. I've been doing this for years, and I do that to get a handle on what's going on for them in their own head and how they're feeling, to get a handle on the situation. If um, and to know, like, I'm just trying to jump into their experience, really.
Yeah.
And so it's a
Mhm.
very quick way to jump into their experience with them. And so, yeah, most say around 30% feels positive. And so when I ask them what makes up that 30% positive, they say things like, we cooked together, we went for a walk, we went skiing, we cuddled on the couch and watched a movie. All those things that, they're experiencing joy with their parent. And those are the times where a parent is cultivating the relationship. And so I term that as the mom dad role, that warm, loving side where you're cultivating the relationship. And then I ask kids, well, what's the other, 70% that you perceive negative? And they say things about, they talk about the interactions that begin with, have you, when are you going to, you need to. And so I term that the parent role. And of course, we have to do those things. I am not saying that we don't. We have to keep our kids on track. They need to do their chores because that's good for them. Um, their homework, all of those things. But when we think about that role, if we are stuck in what I call the parent role, doing that the majority of the time, we're not cultivating a relationship. It can feel very instructional. It can feel a little bit like a performance review rather than a relationship.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yep. Or you see a missing assignment, or they didn't do well on something and they didn't really study for it. So then it becomes this lecture, and we
Yep,
care so much,
we
but
do.
you
Yeah,
know, and that's not a bad thing, but how our kids are hearing it as negative.
right.
And it's never enough, or,
Right.
one more thing. And um, I remember hearing that one of the complaints of teenagers is the moment that I come out of my room, the first thing I hear is, have you gotten X done?
Yeah,
And
right.
I don't even want to come out because I know
Exactly.
I'm going to be told I need to do my chores. So you have a great answer for this that I thought was brilliant about how to get around constantly asking them. And can you share that? Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. And I mean, believe me, I'm a parent too. So I get it. My kids tell me all the time, Mom, you're repeating yourself. I'm like, yep, I own that. I'm sorry.
I know.
Right. I apologize.
I
But
don't need a lecture. That's another.
yeah. And so I think it's about creating designated times. Like, okay, Saturday mornings and Tuesdays, those are the days you need to pick up your room, and we have to look at their schedule and make sure that they actually do have time, to do that during those times. Um, or I'm going to check in with you, about your homework a couple times a week and what days are best to do that. Um, and it really helps them be more self-sufficient. They're on a schedule, they know what's expected. It's just kind of part of the rules, the boundaries, and it does make things easier instead of, 5 times a day. Do you have homework? Did you get your homework done? How much homework do you have? Are you finished with your homework? Need help with your homework. Like it's like oh my gosh. And this is after being at school for 8 hours a day. Like when I go home from work, I don't even want to do homework. Like, you know what I mean? So I'm sure they don't even want to do it, right? More or less talk about it like over and over. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, the heaviness, as you're saying that all to me, I would just like want to melt, like, it's just so hot. And they've been at school all day.
It's
And
all day. And, you know, I think it's hard to sit in a room, in a desk, you know, uh, to learn something maybe you have no natural ability to learn, right? Lots of noise. Think about even changing classrooms in the hall. There's just a lot of noise going on. And so when you come home, you kind of need to decompress a little bit from all of that, you know. And then of course, the social aspect of school could be a good day, could be a really bad day, right? It's hard, the social world is hard. I think social media is only complicating it. It's really hard to navigate for kids.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about the volley and explain what the volley is.
Okay. When our children are born, when they're infants, we are told, we know that we have to create a bond with our kid. And we talk about a serve return. The infant serves up a need. They cry to let us know they have a need. And we respond. We feed them, we cuddle them, we change their diaper. And that's what creates a strong bond, that serve return. It's a volley. The kid, the infant, my mom, my dad, my caregiver is there for me. And I know I'm safe and loved. And so that volley, that serve return never goes away. It just looks different as they get older. And it's more of an emotional connection. And so parents being in tune with their kids about what's happening for them and sensing like, oh, something must be up. But really, it's about parents listening, validating, empathizing, and that is reassuring and comforting to a kid. And it sounds so simple, right? Just listen, but really it is just listening.
Mm.
And so that builds trust as well. When you can do that volley with your teenager, and they know that you'll just sit there and listen, they're more likely to come to you, to reach for you when they need something, when they aren't doing well. And that's the goal. That's what we want.
Yeah. You talk about something else that really stood out to me. My oldest, and as I have grown a lot and done my own growth work, and you talk about that in your book too, understanding myself better and how I was showing up as a parent. Um, there's been a lot of healing in our relationship. And so she's written some blog posts about what it was like.
Oh,
I know. And one thing that she says in one of them is she writes to parents in it about kind of like what she would have wished I would have known back then when
hmm
she was in some difficult spots. And
hmm
one of those things was she was scared to talk to me because she was anticipating I was going to freak out if she told me the truth.
hmm yeah.
And you talk about that in creating connection. And can you speak about some of that, what we tend to do and what our kids really need from us?
I mean, they need us to be a calming force. And so, um, and the calmer we are, the calmer they can be. If we escalate, then, say they bring us a problem and we escalate and get very heightened. What is the message that we're sending to them? Yes, this is a massive problem. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, and then
Yeah,
then the anxiety goes out
right.
they're like, "Oh my gosh, this must be a terrible."
I
Yeah.
mean, I was upset, but now you're really upset, so I better be really upset, right? And right. And so it 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 also can feel like my parent isn't approachable. Like,
Yeah, or rejecting me because I maybe did this and I'm coming to you with
sure.
this and I'm
Right.
bad and
Right.
shame.
They're right. Right. So for us to be regulated, for us to be approachable for our kids is really important because they do want to come to us and we need them to come to us. I talk about vulnerability and emotional transparency. And I think that, we hear that vulnerability is, the secret to lasting and close connections and loving relationships. And it's a yes and a no on that one for me. I see vulnerability as a stepping stone to emotional transparency. And the goal is for our kids to be able to reach to us, to be transparent with us. Vulnerability implies risk. So, why do we want our kids to feel like they have to emotionally risk to share with us? And the risk is judgment, rejection, abandonment. We don't want our kids to feel that way in their relationship with us in our home. And so when we see our kid hesitating, that is, they're showing their vulnerability there. Like, oh my goodness, I'm unsure. This feels risky to share with you. And that's the moment you step in, you lean in and say, you can talk to me about this too. I'm here, I'm approachable. And so that builds that transparency. And so and which also builds connectedness. The more your kid can be emotionally transparent with you, the more they feel connected with you.
Yeah. It gets back to that need that we have to be loved and accepted for who we are, like warts and all.
Yes, the messy parts, as I talk about in
Oh,
the book.
yeah.
You know,
Like
you need to be
yeah.
accepted for all of it. And for a parent to accept you, considering all the messy parts, I mean, that is priceless for a child.
Yeah, and knowing they're going to screw up, right? I mean, I mean, saying screw up sounds, but they are, and so have we, and we're gonna make mistakes, and that's how we learn.
Yeah,
And,
we want them to make, I mean, this is how I see it. We want kids to make mistakes while they're in our home so we can
mhm,
catch them,
mhm,
right? Like, I got
mhm.
you. I got you. It's going to be all right. And then, yeah, we learn trial and error. That's how we all learn. And right now, kids are not given much trial and error. There's like a limited ability to fail without a severe consequence. If I get a B, on that test, I'm not going to get into college. That's what I hear a
Yeah.
lot.
Mhm,
And it's
mhm,
just
mhm.
really painful. And some of that might be true, right? Some of it might be. Like, again, the standards are set so high for these kids right now.
And yet, while some of that might be important, right? It's really not the most important thing. I mean, now having older kids that I can say, because this really gets down to the statistics that you were sharing, that the kids that feel connected, feel like that sense of belonging and loved for who they are the ones that are actually going to thrive more because of that. Correct?
Yeah, and they have a higher self-esteem. They feel good about themselves, higher self-worth. And those are the things that are important in being successful, but also having a happy and healthy life and having good relationships. I mean, that's the other piece that I talk about in the book is you're setting the foundation for your kid. Not only you're working on your relationship between the two of you, but you're setting the foundation for your kid to have healthy relationships in the future.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And what that looks like.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What love looks and feels like, right?
Yeah. So many good things. I was telling you I'm now doing a book club and we're going to do your book and you're going to come
Yay!
see us. And I'm so excited
No.
because yes, like
Can't wait.
the foundation, and she talks in there about just, even regulating ourselves, which I think is a big part of it, big piece of it. We didn't even get to
Yeah.
touch on half of it, more over half of it, because there's so many good things in this book. But I just want to make sure that was there something that we didn't touch on that you feel is important to talk about?
Well, I really want parents to feel my compassion while
Mm,
reading the book, that I get it. I know how hard it is to be a parent, and especially now. Um, I want to make sure parents know that they don't have to be a perfect parent. And that's not what it's about. It's about how can you connect with your kid and feel that closeness with them. And really looking at ourselves is important, right? But It doesn't mean we have to be perfect. It means we have to look at what our tendencies are and
Mhm.
know ourselves really well. Like, oh, yeah, this triggers me and I escalate and then I yell. Okay, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to work on that. Right. So
Yes.
being perfect, it's just about owning it and then working on it. Right. Like in
Yeah.
any relationship, we have to do that with our teens too. And I think the other thing I want to make sure parents know is that even the smallest things can make the biggest difference in your relationship. Just even greeting your kid at the door instead of saying, your shoes are on the thing, and do you have homework? And you're late, and I heard you got an F. It's hi, I missed you today. I'm so happy to see you. Right? Hugging your kid is like massive, right? Makes the biggest difference. These little things like that. And lastly, like it's never too late. It's never too late to build a stronger connection with your kids.
Oh no, it's never too late. I loved reading that in the book because you called it something, all the years in the future, God willing, that we have with them, and that so it's a lifetime of building these connections. And I agree. If you're discouraged and you're listening, it is never too late. Like my
Yep.
daughter, she's like, she'll say at the bottom of the blog post, and my mother has done a lot of work on herself and she is not the mom she used to be. So it's never, ever too late. So
Never too late.
yeah.
Yeah, never
And
too late.
yeah. And you really give so much hope and encouragement and positivity in the book. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. It means so
Yeah.
much to me. Thank you. And I really look forward to jumping in on one of the book groups meetings.
Yes. Yeah. And
Let me know
tell
when and I'll be there.
I know, I can't wait. And tell them where to find you because they need to know.
Yeah, so you can buy the book, The Parenting Connection, How to Build Lifelong Family Relationships, wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. My website is susancaso.com, CASO. My Instagram is susan.caso. By the way, I just started on social media in October, so no judgment there, please. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm going to start posting some good, helpful things, so I promise. And then you can always email me, counseling@susancaso.com.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, Susan, so much. And I'm excited to dig into this book more with more moms. And I'll put the link in there. And I'll also put a link in there for the book club when we're going to do your book. And we're saying March or April, but more on that to come. So yeah, I very much appreciate you and you sharing all your wisdom with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.